I was told my position, HR/PR, was so essential that I wasn't allowed to call out sick. Our PTO was 24 hours sick/year as the minimum required by state law. I received a write-up for calling out and responded with a concise detail of employee attendance records, which proved myself in the 98th percentile. I was asked to wipe my response from the records. 3 months later, I was hospitalized for pneumonia. I missed 1 day of work and upon return was sent home until I provided a doctor's note. I spent $75 copay to get a doc note that confirmed/cleared my absence. Mr. President refused to accept the note allowing my return to work until I provided another note allowing me to return to work. I could have spent the extra money, but refused. Mr. President spoke with his $250 per hour attorney, and I received a $14K severance and a promise to not dispute unemployment. Hope your vision is good. I worked for a manager that would deliberately set up employees to fail by making unreasonable requests. They'd then use the failure as a reason to deny raises, promotion, and transfers. For example, I was asked to create a one-page report with an amount of information that would take around 4 pages. Knowing that more than one page would impact my annual review, I resorted to malicious compliance. The report contained all of the required information and fit on a single page, and my boss learned that 3-point font is a thing and that they needed glasses. Okay, I'll let you speak. So this happened a good 7 to 8 years ago. I used to work on a help desk. We had recent switched a major software to a new one. They didn't want to train us on that system, so they paid for a third party to deal with those calls. When you called it, it was phone tree that basically said to press 1 for the new software or press 2 for any other issues. If you pressed 2 and had an issues for line 1, we had to transfer you. We had no training, access, and the contract stipulated it as well. So no way to help you in any way. Things are different now, but that was the deal at that point. So this user calls us, I get her information, and proceeds to immediately tell me that she is having an issue with this system. I try to interrupt her polite, and she cuts me off and proceeds to yell into the phone, "How dare you? You do not interrupt me, that is rude, and you will let me finish." I said nothing and let her talk. She proceeds to talk for a full 5 minutes. I timed her, giving me the full rundown of her issues in excruciating detail. She finally finished. I let there be a pause where she goes, "Hello?" Both to annoy her a bit and to make sure she is actually done. I put on my AAA+++ customer service voice and ask if she is done, as I didn't want to interrupt her again. I then explained sweetly and politely, "I'm sorry, I was trying not to waste your time early when I tried to interrupt. This is the wrong line for this system, and I was trying to get you to the correct line so they can help you. I need to transfer you." Just oozing all the "I was just trying to help you" I could. There was no sound coming from the phone, but I could feel the red-hot rage and embarrassment coming through the phone as I transferred her to the correct line. Wanna discipline me for being right? I got you. Mock. I work for a freight delivery company, drive a semi-truck, and usually go out with 10 to 15 deliveries a day. Our policy is that when you deliver to a residence, you have to take a picture with the work phone as an additional proof of delivery. That has morphed into now, if the delivery receipt, DR, says residential, you have to take a picture of it, regardless if it's going to a business or a house. There are so many small details on a DR that can get missed, so this is an important detail. One day last week, I have a delivery for Laura Lopez, name changed. It was being delivered to a construction company that Laura is an employee of. The doctor does not say it's residential. I make the delivery and leave, no picture. Next morning, my bitch of a supervisor says, "I have a write-up for you." Puzzled, I ask her for what. For the Laura Lopez delivery yesterday, it was residential. I explained to her that it was at a business, and the DR did not say residential. She wasn't having it. I should also mention that her and I butt heads often, and she's been trying to get rid of me for some time. I told her that we need to go talk to my manager about it, so we do, and he sides with me, because she has no ground to stand on. This infuriates her. I tell her that under no circumstances will this be an issue again. That day is when I start my MC. I take pictures with the work phone at every stop. What happens is when I hit depart on the work phone, it sends a pop-up to her computer with the picture and she has to acknowledge it before she can do anything else on her computer. I crashed her computer 3 times that day. At one stop, I took 20 pictures. I get a call from her telling me that I have to stop taking pictures. I politely tell her that I'm covering my ass and not going against policy. I'm giving you an order. I laugh and hang up. Sure as shit, she wrote me up for it. I don't even argue, I say we need to take it to my manager. I walk in and he says, "What now?" I tell him the story, he looks at her, takes the write-up and rips it up. Are you seriously writing him up for overperforming? She had no words, and I still take a picture at every stop, because I'm petty, lol. Update. So after my original post, many things have transpired. My terminal is getting a new classification, which means more freight, more jobs, positions switching around, etc. The bitch of a supervisor is transitioning to a night position because no one respects me. Well, if you weren't such a pain in the ass, maybe someone would. When she announced this today, she looked at me and flat out asked me, "Are you gonna miss me?" My answer was short, simple, to the point, and in front of about 60 other employees, including my boss's boss, nope. She looked aghast. She looked surprised. When everyone burst out with laughter, she looked defeated. I win, bitch, and you lose. Followed special instructions left by customer. I work at a pizzeria that offers delivery service. At the time I was driving a shitty car with a broken headlight that was held in place with duct tape. I had to replace the tape every so often when it got old and didn't hold the headlight anymore, so I just carried a roll of duct tape in my car at all times. You'll see why this matters later. A couple years ago, I got a delivery order with 1 cent pre-tipped on the card. They also requested no contact delivery, so I was supposed to just leave the pizza there on the ground and not wait for them to answer the door. In the special instructions they wrote "leave pizza on door." I figured it was a typo, and they really meant doorstep, or maybe English wasn't their first language. Nevertheless, instructions were given and it was my job to follow them. Remember that roll of tape that I mentioned earlier? Yeah, this is where that comes in. I took the roll of duct tape and taped the pizza box to their front door. They never called the store to complain. I never got in trouble, and they always left a $4 tip any time they ordered pizza after that. Can I check the back? Sure. Quick and dirty, customer asked for a very popular toy at Christmas. Staff stated we did not have any, no one had any. She insisted the employee check the back. He explained there is no back, everything is brought in and put directly on the shelf. The only thing in the back is the cardboard crusher and empty stocking carts. She insisted he check. He refused. She asked for the manager on duty, me. I happily went to the back, crushed some cardboard, texted my husband, swept the truck bay, threw out trash. That was in 2018. I hope she is still waiting there for her damn Hatchimal. But we all know why I chose that name. Karen was on the HOA board and, as you can imagine, we didn't get along with Karen or the HOA board. We told Karen about the camera and showed her the grayed out areas at the same time that we told our friendly neighbor about it. It was simply an FYI conversation. We are not on friendly terms, not an asking permission conversation. She told us to take the cameras down immediately or we would regret it. About a week after we hung the camera up, we got a notice from our HOA that we were violating the bylaws. The bylaw in question? A nuisance to your neighbor's bylaw. There wasn't a specific bylaw preventing placement of cameras, so this is all they could find to try to punish us. We responded with a letter detailing how we were not violating any bylaws or laws in general and asked them to cease and desist. We all know how these stories go though. They did not cease. And they did not desist. Their first response? The HOA has the right to enforce these bylaws. Try to stop us, if you think you can. These types of responses were, unfortunately, quite common from this board. We entered this battle with one goal in mind, to cost them as much money and time as possible. The HOA hired a lawyer, specifically to fight us. To my knowledge, this has not happened to any other residents. In the following 4 months, we ended up costing the HOA over $4,000 in lawyers' fees fighting this battle. For reference, the entire HOA income was $25,000/year. When it came time for our official HOA hearing over the matter, we had successfully postponed it, thanks to an attorney friend, 3 separate times. There were over 100 back and forth emails with the HOA attorney and ourselves. Each one of those emails was a 15-minute expense for the HOA. And I was happy to follow up a follow-up question with another follow-up question if it meant the HOA attorney was going to keep billing them. Did I say follow-up enough times? We didn't actually want to take this battle to court, so we ended up removing the cameras the day of the hearing, to prevent being fined even if the fine wouldn't hold up in court. The HOA decided in the hearing that we were guilty, surprise, surprise, of violating the bylaw. They couldn't fine us as the bylaws don't allow a fine until after a hearing has been held and the cameras were already removed. In the end, the punishment was a sternly written piece of paper on the attorney's letterhead, delivered via certified mail, that stated that we were not allowed to place a camera on our home that had the potential to invade a neighbor's privacy. Keep in mind, the letter specifically stated the camera could not be placed on our home. We left the cameras off of the home for about 4 months until the annual HOA meeting. You should have seen the look on the HOA board's faces when I asked them to explain the $4,000 line item for attorney's fees that simply stated title searches attorney fees. The board actually tried to hide the fact that they spent $4,000 trying to fight us over a couple of cameras by putting the fees in as title searches. Needless to say, that meeting did not go well for them. About half of them lost their positions on the board. The other half, including Karen, unfortunately, remained on the board. About a week after the annual meeting, we installed new cameras facing the same direction as the prior cameras, only this time, we installed a post in the ground and mounted the cameras to that post. The admonishment we received after the hearing specifically stated that we were not allowed to install cameras on our home and said nothing about putting them on a post. They did send a letter to try to tell us to remove the cameras, but a sternly worded response indicating that we were prepared to fight them actually worked this time around. I guess they didn't want to spend another $4,000 fighting us. We didn't receive any follow-up responses. And the cameras on the post are still installed to this day, over 2 years and running strong. Cop keeps interrogating me on where I'm coming from. My pleasure. Disclaimer, I am a woman and was polite otherwise, YMMB. When I was younger, I would visit natural parks. One time as I was driving home, a police officer pulled me over for alcohol testing. I politely complied, yet the officer must have thought I was peddling drugs or something, because he asked for a further drug test and started interrogating me. I told him that I came from the natural park, yet he was asking me the same question on repeat. Finally, I kept a cordial demeanor, imagining myself as if I were talking to a coworker, and with the appropriate delivery, I went on a long monologue on how I enjoyed visiting natural parks, which road I took there, where I stopped for petrol, how much I paid for petrol, where I parked, which track I walked on, when did I decide to turn back on the track, which birds I saw on the track, the weather at the park, and so on. Finally, after a minute, he told me to shush and then let me go after the drug test came clear. I think some cops would have gotten more angry by this behavior, but what worked for me was my genuine delivery. Starting a religion as a form of malicious compliance. Some states in the US made people vote in person during the pandemic. Some states also allow you to vote by mail for religious holidays. So someone started a religion that believes all US voting days are religious holidays, legally allowing all members to vote by mail or get off work to vote. Boss insisted I work in the office today. My boss and I had a disagreement about working from home this week. The office is in San Francisco. I live in the East Bay and need to cross the Bay Bridge to get to work. We had an important presentation scheduled today. I wanted to do it virtual, because the APEC meeting is in SF this week and everything seems disrupted. President Biden and Chinese President Xi are here. It's a 2-hour commute on a typical day, and I told my boss it might not be feasible to come in this week. He insisted I come in, so I said okay, but don't blame me if I get stuck in traffic. We had a pretty heated discussion about it. So today there's a huge backup on every freeway toward the Bay Bridge, because protesters have chained themselves across all 5 lanes. The bridge is completely closed. Now the boss wants me to do the presentation virtual, but I told him I can't, I'm stuck in traffic. I can't operate my vehicle and do the presentation. You will have to do it without me, but he isn't really qualified. I'll lose my job for clocking in 1 minute late. Hate to do this. Punctuality is a good habit, it shows discipline and commitment. I worked in a job where you had to clock in before your start time. There was a computerized process, and you would lose your job if you clocked in late more than twice a year, even if you were only 1 minute late. I pride myself on punctuality, but I was running a bit late for the 3rd time in 10 months. A man's gotta hustle, and I just called my employer and told him that I was feeling sick and needed to take a day off. I kept that job afterwards for a while. You only want men, okay. I used to work for a temp agency, we specialized in labor and construction work, but really if I had notice could recruit for any type of work. We had customers that often needed workers with different skills and tickets. And some customers were just downright misogynistic. One customer called later in the morning and said he needed 2 workers and would only accept men. I explained that due to timing I didn't have many workers available at short notice, but I have 2 women available that are very seasoned and strong, with great work ethic. He declined, so I sent him the other 2 men I had in the office who were 2 of the laziest workers I had, hence why they were not already dispatched. The customer called me at the end of the day and said he needed 2 workers again tomorrow, but not those 2 as they were horrible. I again offered the ladies and said how they had been praised for past work. He begrudgingly agreed. The next day he called and said how they were some of the best workers he had ever had. They ended up working for him for 3 months, and he eventually hired them. Don't believe I have the flu? Sure, I will come in. So, I was working at a certain brown package shipping company as a night shift supervisor in a loading area. The hub manager had a policy that if you called in, you would be told you had to come in to be assessed. I get it. Night shift starts at 9. People party, too drunk to come, want to stay with their girl, works the day and are tired. I had been spilling my guts most of the day, so was weak, dehydrated and kind of dizzy. Manager insisted I come in, see how I feel. So, drove to the building, practically stumbled up to the office, picked up his trash can and delivered stomach bile into a mesh trash can that was missing a liner. Said I will see you tomorrow, maybe. Never heard anything more about it,